Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, joined as always by Mike Tagliere. We're on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. And our guest today is Davis Mattek of Swolecast and Takecast. He's on Twitter at his name, Davis Mattek. Davis, how's it going today?
It's going great. Glad to be here, guys.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Tags, what's going on, man?
Oh, nothing much. It is the best day of the week for me. Like Thursday, the primer gets posted. We record the DFS episode. We have a guest on the show today. And that's the thing. I really look forward to the DFS show because I look forward to picking people's brains like Davis on the show because it just gives me, an outside take on what I've been looking at all week because, we only have so many days in a week to research everything we possibly can. And we're going to miss some things here and there. So I look forward to this show all week. I'm more than happy. I'm so happy to be doing this right now.
It's like all the research we do, we're finally putting it to practice and we get to see how it all plays out here. So, I guess not really because we get to see that on Sunday. But again, talking to Davis, this is going to be fun. He always gives great takes. Very good at DFS, so make sure to pay close attention when he's talking. And Davis, the way we do these shows is we're going to go position by position, so quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense, and that's for cash games. And then we'll flip around and we'll do GPP. At the end, we'll do our stack of the week and our lock of the week. So let's start at the quarterback position, and there's quite a few guys that you could feasibly use this week. For cash games, I've got 3 or 4 favorites of close, but I would not really judge you if you use any of 12 guys. So which way are you leaning towards, Davis?
The guy I have in my lineup right now in cash is Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I think Fitzpatrick and Luck are kind of the two guys I would really be debating, and I assume some people will want to use Mariota or McCown, but I just don't see the need to have to go that cheap.
Andrew Luck, really? Okay, so we'll talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick in a second, but Luck was not even on my radar. I know Jacksonville's defense hasn't been as good, but they have been second best at defending the pass in terms of fantasy points allowed. So is it just the price point, or what do you see here?
Luck is just he's the safest built-in volume at the quarterback position in all of football. He's just chucking it. The Jacksonville defense, the thing that they were so good at last year is they just got a lot of coverage sacks, right? And the pass rush is worse this year. The corners are worse this year. Jalen Ramsey and Quentin Meeks are the 45th and 46th graded corners on Pro Football Focus. So it's just not really a defense you're having to be concerned about, really.
Interesting. Tags, is Andrew Luck on your radar at all?
He's not on my radar. The thing is, I just think there's too much risk in a cash game to do that. We know what Jacksonville's made of, and the thing is, AJ Boye, we don't know if he's going to play. It doesn't seem like he's going to. Doug Maroney did say that it's news to him that Boye wouldn't play in Week 10, so I'm not shutting the door on that because if Boye comes back. But does it really matter, though? Because T.Y. Hilton's going to get shadowed by Jalen Ramsey, and we saw what Ramsey did with Tyreek Hill a couple weeks ago, and that takes away his number one option. We have Barry Church coming back from injury. Jacksonville's been really good against tight ends, so that's removing a couple more options from Luck. I just think in a divisional game, I don't think you need to attack this one. I do like the Fitzpatrick call, though. When playing cash games, it's really nice to grab a quarterback who, A, does not have a semblance of a run game, B, playing in a matchup where a team that stops the run extremely well, which the Redskins have all year long, and then, obviously, looking at the pass catchers he has matched up with the secondary of the Redskins. Josh Norman, I don't know what they're doing with him. All of a sudden, they were ever since he came to Washington, they have not used him in shadow situations, and then all of a sudden they decided to shadow Julio Jones, and it was what are you guys doing? Then Quentin Dunbar, obviously a lot of touchdown to Calvin Ridley. They're just not very good in the secondary. They've been exposed. They grabbed Clinton Dix because they knew that there was weakness on their back end, so I do like the Fitzpatrick call. I would much rather play him, but you guys haven't mentioned my favorite play, though, and that's Baker Mayfield. Baker against the Falcons, last week we obviously saw, talking about the Washington team, we saw Alex Smith missing 3 offensive linemen. His receivers are trash. He has no pass-catching running back. Everything was going wrong for that guy, and he still threw up 16 fantasy points against the Falcons. And I want to say that he was the first quarterback all season to score less than 20 fantasy points against them. Outside of week 1 where we had Nick Foles, and that's really Nick Foles.
And he's a good price as well, but Ryan Fitzpatrick, at least on FanDuel, is only $200 more expensive. And we haven't seen him throw for less than 20 fantasy points himself. And Washington's a pass funnel defense, so I can't see going away from Fitzpatrick to Mayfield. I guess he should be in consideration, but if you're going cheap, I think it's Fitzpatrick.
Well, in FanDuel it's $200 and DraftKings it's $500, so it really just depends on what you're doing. The thing is DraftKings...
Yeah, but then Phillip Rivers is only $100 more than Fitzpatrick, so I think I would prefer Phillip Rivers on DraftKings than either of the two.
So, Davis, are you worried about Phillip Rivers' game script? Because, like, the thing is like against Oakland, my concern here is that Phillip Rivers does have a run game, and he has a very good one. And probably the best play on the board this week is probably Melvin Gordon. And I mean, Rivers, he doesn't add anything on the ground. It's very unlikely that he's going to have to throw the ball more than 25 to 30 times. He hasn't been throwing much recently at all. Anyways, he's been competent, yeah. But are we worried that there's like a 225 yard game in here with maybe 2 touchdowns, and that might not be worth the price?
Yeah, in general, I like kind of never pay up for quarterbacks in cash games. So and Rivers doesn't even seem to me to be in all of that attractive of a spot. So I do not currently have him, and probably honestly, my Chargers exposure will be pretty much all Melvin Gordon in cash and tournaments.
What about the expensive side? I mean, on DraftKings at least, you only go up $400 from Phillip Rivers, and you're at Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't go all the way up to Patrick Mahomes, but a lot of people are asking about him. He's probably going to be the most owned again this week on DraftKings because you just have more money to use over there on the DraftKings website. So what do you guys think about Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes? Tags, we'll let you go first.
I like Rodgers a lot. This kind of goes back to where, like, you remember at the beginning of the season when Mitch Trubisky was really struggling. Like, he was not playing very well. And then the Bears had the Bucs come to town. And I think Matt Nagy saw it as an opportunity, right? And he said, we need to get Mitch Trubisky some confidence. And what did he do? He went out there and Trubisky threw 6 touchdowns. They attacked through the air nonstop. Like, they didn't take their foot off the throttle. This is a Green Bay team that legitimately is at the point where people are counting them out of the playoff race, and that should never happen when you have Aaron Rodgers under center, and especially at the halfway point in the season. I'm not counting them out, but this is a game where it's like a confidence builder. You have a Dolphins defense who's really been trending in the wrong direction. They can't stop the run at all. They're not getting much of a pass rush. And then you had Rashad Jones, their Pro Bowl safety, pull himself out of the game last week. He wasn't hurt. He doesn't regret it, but he didn't want to play. He just pulled himself out of the game. They had to move Minkah Fitzpatrick back to safety, which he's been solid. Like, Fitzpatrick has been an awesome draft pick, but he's a better slot cornerback at this point in his career. And now there are so many issues here. Xavier Howard's working through some injuries. Aaron Rodgers is going to target Devontae Adams. Valdes-Scantling is going to be matched up with McTyer on the perimeter. There's so many problems with this Dolphins team.
Well, plus Rodgers is throwing more passes than he ever has before. He's on pace for 654. The second most he's ever thrown is 572.
The thing is Rodgers, to me, it feels like he's having a bad season. And this is like how high I hold my expectations for him.
Yeah, he's got 15 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Yeah. And that's the thing. He's on pace to throw for over 5,000 yards. So how bad of a season is it really? But I just think that this game is a get-right game for the Packers and their offense, and they're at home. There's not much to dislike about him, so I have no issue if someone wants to tell me they're going to pay up for Rodgers.
Now, Davis, you said you don't like to pay up for quarterbacks. If you did, would you prefer to go Rodgers or Mahomes?
Oh, it's Mahomes.
Oh, okay.
Like, Mahomes just gets, like, his floor in a game where the other team is not good is like 280 yards and 3 touchdowns.
I mean, he's had 300 yards in 8 straight games now. He's had multiple touchdowns in 8 out of 9 games this season. He runs the ball a little bit. But I'm looking at this 17-point spread. I don't know if I really want to mess with that.
Like that. The reason why you wouldn't play him is if you just expect a bunch of like Spencer Ware or whatever in the second half, which is why I don't have him. He's just like, I will probably do like Tyreek and Mahomes and Kelsey in tournaments. But if we get some sick value, like there are 2 min-price wide receivers or a min-price running back that comes into play, someone gets hurt in practice, yeah, I would play Mahomes over Rodgers for sure.
It's really easy to look at, game script and just say, well, that means he's not going to score that many points. They're projected to score 33 points. Like, that's by far the best on the slate, so I guess it's not bad, but at $9,800 on FanDuel, you've got to be kidding me. There's no chance I would play him.
Well, he's $7,200 in DraftKings, too, so he's not even cheap there. Like, they're pricing him up, and they're making you pay. I'm worried about Watkins, like him, because I don't think he plays. I don't even know if Watkins plays next week because they have their bye in week 12, so the Arizona defense has played some good quarterbacks this year. Kirk Cousins has played against them, Russell Wilson, Mitch Trubisky, Jared Goff, and they have still yet to allow a top 10 performance to a quarterback. So it's the thing. I still have Mahomes as my number 1 quarterback this week, but I'm not paying for him in DFS. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, it's really interesting because he's number 1 in ECR. So one of these trends has to break. I will not bet against Patrick Mahomes, though.
No, you don't bet against him, but you just don't play him in DFS, though. Not in cash.
Any other quarterbacks you would even consider, Davis? Like, I know you've got your 2 or 3 guys you love, but is there anyone that it wouldn't be stupid, at least, if someone's considering them?
I mean, my player pool at quarterback is always the most narrow of any position. I find that what I do in cash is I generally just go with, there are about 2 or 3 guys I consider all week, and then for tournaments, I just open it up to like game stacks. Because if you look at quarterback scoring in tournaments, it's clearly the position that matters the least. So I honestly don't expend a ton of time thinking about it. I think this week it's Fitzpatrick, and it's pretty easy.
Yeah, I think so as well. At least on FanDuel. On DraftKings, like I mentioned, there's a couple guys I wouldn't mind. Rivers, Rodgers. I mean, there's really a ton of them with how cheap everyone is over there. But FanDuel, I'm definitely going Fitzpatrick. Tags, anything you want to add before we go to running back?
Nope. I think we covered it.
All right. Before we do get to running back, I want to talk about one of the sponsors of today's show, Audible.com. What would it look like if we all listened more? Listening to audiobooks motivates us, inspires us, even brings us closer together. There's no better place to listen than Audible, because now Audible members get even more exclusive audio, fitness programs, audiobooks, Audible Originals, and more. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet, and now with Audible Originals, the selection has got even more custom with content made for members. I've been listening back through The Life of David Brainerd by Jonathan Edwards, and I just absolutely love hearing it while I'm doing the dishes rather than just wasting that time. Every month, Audible members get 1 credit good for any audiobook they choose, plus 2 Audible Originals from a changing selection that they can't get anywhere else. They also get access to audio fitness and health workouts created exclusively for Audible. Plus, your books are yours to keep. With Audible, you get to go back and re-listen anytime, even if you cancel your membership. Didn't like your audiobook? Exchange it. Start a 30-day trial, and your first audiobook is free. Go to audible.com/fantasypros or text FantasyPros, all one word, to 500-500. Again, go to audible.com/fantasypros or text FantasyPros, all one word, to 500-500. You can do it with audiobooks. All right, guys, running back. Tags, you said it's a Melvin Gordon week. You're not playing Todd Gurley, or are you doing both?
It's tough to play both. I mean, they're both 9K and up. I mean, I like Gurley, don't get me wrong. And as I mentioned on yesterday's show, he has scored 7 touchdowns the last 2 games they played against Seattle. So I don't want to fault anybody for playing Gurley. I just think it's a very touchdown dependent game for him. And that's the thing. I said I would play Todd Gurley until I got burned. I ended up moving off of him last week. I didn't play him. I just felt like there were better plays on the board. I had Kareem Hunt in every single lineup I played. This week, I just feel like Melvin Gordon might be the better pure point projection in terms of what you're looking at. Because I think Melvin Gordon has 3 touchdown upside in this game against the Raiders. They've been struggling against everything. Legitimately, if you've watched that team, you know they've just given up. It kind of reminds me of the Giants last year, where we just played everybody we wanted to against them because they have nothing. They just don't have the talent to hang with these NFL teams. And knowing this is a divisional game, knowing that the Chargers have lost games before, you remember that the game that the Chargers lost in Cleveland 2 years ago that ended their winless season. The Chargers lost. Of all teams that would lose, it was the Chargers to the Browns. And that's the thing, is this is a divisional game. They tend to be a little bit closer than people expect, but the Raiders are so bad. I just think that the Chargers walk in there and say, we want to escape with a win. The best way to do that is not turn the ball over, not take many chances, put the ball in Melvin Gordon's hands, and let him get it done.
Or Austin Eckler, because it's not like Melvin Gordon's 100% right now, right? I mean, he's just a few weeks removed.
Hold on. So yeah, that's what I looked at. So I'm sure you guys found, Davis, I'm sure you found the same thing, that Melvin Gordon coming back, I thought that they were going to ease him back in. He legitimately played a season high in terms of his snap percentage. There is no holding back.
He looks great, but why would you need to do that against Oakland?
Because it's a divisional game and they don't want to screw it up.
Yeah, they're not going to screw it up, man. They're 11-point favorites.
They don't even pull him anyways, though. And all of Melvin Gordon's career, the times that he's been pulled in a blowout, I can't remember one time.
He's already done the damage by that point, I'm sure.
I mean, I'm not arguing against Melvin Gordon. I'm definitely playing Melvin Gordon, and I'm definitely playing Kareem Hunt too. Todd Gurley is not a bad price on DraftKings. He's only $400 more expensive than Gordon, but on FanDuel, we're talking about Todd Gurley's $10,800. We've got Melvin Gordon is $8,900. So no, I'm not doing that. I'm going Kareem Hunt and Melvin Gordon. Which way are you going here, Davis?
I'm going Gurley. I have Gurley and DK Cash for sure. And the second guy I'm considering, given their prices, is actually Kareem Hunt. I don't disagree with anything that Tag said. I think Gordon is great this week, but you can't play Gurley and Gordon. And so I go Gurley over Gordon just because, it's Todd Gurley, and then I think that for their prices I like Hunt more. But the guy I actually have right now in my shell is Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon's a good play. There's a lot of good running backs to choose from this week, and like no wide receivers I'm especially excited about.
Hold on a second. I'm curious to why you're on Mixon. Like this is one where I can be, I guess, talked into, because I love Mixon the player. I just hate how they use him. I don't think that they've designed pass plays with AJ Green out. He should get more, but have they worked that into the game plan enough? That's my concern.
Well, they've been in a lot of kind of ball control sort of games, right? And you know, I tend to throw out games where teams just get absolutely annihilated, right? So that Chiefs game, I'm not looking at a ton. He did have 7 targets in that game, but I assume that they're going to want to try and control the ball a little bit more in this game, obviously to limit how many possessions they get, and I think that will lead to more short passing, and with no AJ Green, I think less deep shots. So I think, and Mixon has one of the best rushing shares projected this week of anyone in the field, so I think he has goal line work. I would project higher than his seasonal average in targets, even with Gio Bernard out, and I think 18 rushing attempts is a pretty safe floor.
I would imagine he's going to get a ton of receptions, as they're probably playing from behind, but this Saints run defense, it's the best in football right now. So I don't know. I guess you could argue the Ravens. I would say it's the Saints. So that makes me wary enough to not play Joe Mixon, but he is on my radar. I definitely considered him.
Yeah, he's game script proof. That's for sure. Is Gio out for sure?
No, he has been out, but he practiced in a limited fashion this week. But I don't know if he'll be back and ready to go.
If Gio is out, it would definitely increase my me liking Mixon. But the thing is he's still too expensive. I would rather go down to David Johnson at 6,800. David Johnson, I haven't really been on him at all this year, but it was a little refreshing to see the way he was used in Byron Leftwich's offense. Even the offense as a whole, they just ran a lot better. Josh Rosen, I think, set a season high in completions, attempts, yardage, touchdowns. There was a lot to like there. And the thing is Kansas City, most people have overlooked this, but Kansas City's been really, really good against the pass. They're getting a pass rush. They've allowed the fewest fantasy points per target to wide receivers.
But what are you going to do, run down 3 touchdowns?
But running backs, though, well, that's the thing. So David Johnson, obviously, he's game script proof. He's someone that could be used in the passing game. He was used, I think he had 4 targets in the first half. He wasn't targeted in the second half of their last game, but he didn't really need to be. But the Kansas City defense has allowed 159 points through the air alone to running backs, okay? So that's PPR. The closest team is the Falcons at 131 points. Everybody wants to play Duke Johnson this week because of the Falcons defense and what they allow. Why isn't anybody wanting to play David Johnson? Across the board, the Chiefs defense has been terrible. They allowed the most fantasy points per target to running backs through the air. They've allowed 13 total touchdowns to running backs, 5.2 yards per carry. There's really nothing that they don't allow to running backs, and that's why it's David Johnson presents one of the highest floors this week. I don't think that he's going to have a 3-touchdown ceiling.
He's a good price, man. He's just $6,800 on DraftKings.
That's why, yeah.
Yeah, if you asked me, though, who's going to get more touches between Mixon and David Johnson, I would say Mixon. If you asked me who's got the best chance at a touchdown, I would say Mixon. I mean, these two are close, but way behind Hunt, Gordon, and Gurley for me, at least. There's one other play that I'm really fond of. In fact, I think every single week this season, except for one, I think it was 2 weeks ago when Mixon and James Conner and somebody else went off. I thought there were 3 great plays. Every single week I've used a wide receiver in the flex. This week I'm not, and the reason why is because I think Chris Carson's going to be out, and if he is, Mike Davis is an awesome play. 4,300 on DraftKings. He's 5,800 on FanDuel. I want him in my lineup. He's probably going to get 20 touches.
Davis, what do you think about? I've been burned by Seattle running backs too much. It's kind of like Crowell. I played Crowell in cash last week, and it was the stupidest decision I've ever made in my life. It's the second time in my life I've ever rostered him in cash. I've done that with the Seahawks running backs twice, and I've been burned both times. I just don't trust him.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dion Lewis on DraftKings is clearly the more superior play. He played his highest snap share of the season, had 60-plus rushing and receiving yards last week. Seems like that the nerve damage that Mariota was suffering from is kind of healed. Seems like he can kind of move again and throw the ball how he likes to. I think Dion Lewis, given the PPR scoring format, is just better.
Yeah, Lewis is a good price as well, but keep in mind, Mike Davis had 7 receptions last week.
Oh, I know he did. That's the thing is, if I was going off, the production he's had when Carson's been out of the lineup, I'd play him too. But, I don't know, going into LA, I don't feel good about that game.
There is definitely a chance that Rashad Penny is just going to come out and be the starter and get 20 touches, and Mike Davis is, benched. Who knows with Seattle?
It's possible.
But I think it's a very good chance that Davis gets 20 touches.
I think so. I don't think Mike Davis is a bad play. I just prefer Deion Lewis.
That's fine. Deion Lewis is a good play too. Yeah.
The Patriots defense is so bad. Like I don't know. Like I think people still think of the Patriots as kind of like this invulnerable like destroy bot. They're not at all.
They were pretty good against the Packers last week, but yeah, you're right. I mean, keep in mind though, they've won the Super Bowl when they were a bottom 3 defense several times.
So we haven't talked about Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, Coleman's fine. Same with Duke Johnson against Atlanta.
But Tevin Coleman, 5,400 against Cleveland. So Cleveland, the last 4 weeks, they've allowed, to teams of running backs, like adding up teams of running backs, they've allowed at least 43 PPR points in 3 of the last 4 games. They've allowed at least one 33-point running back. Like 33-point running back. Like that's something that most teams don't do all season. They've allowed that in 3 of the last 4 games. Melvin Gordon, James Conner, and Kareem Hunt have all gone off. The only team that didn't do anything against them was the Bucs, and the Bucs don't do anything against anyone.
Yeah, I'm on board with the Tevin play quite a bit actually. His receiving share last week was 18%, and a lot of people when Freeman got sent to the IR got really excited about Ito, but Ito is the bit player. Tevin is the primary guy, and like yeah, Ito ran hot on touchdowns and actually ran hot on touchdowns last week. If he didn't score last week, he would have had a horrible game, and I think you know Tevin is like a 7K running back in a good spot, and he's not priced that way.
You know, I'm really surprised what they did against Washington last week, because Washington is a good run defense. The Browns do not. I think this is a very good situation for Tevin. And if I have a wide receiver that I really like and I want to spend up on, I could see going down from Kareem Hunt to go get Tevin. But man, I really want to use Gordon and Hunt. So
yeah, the Browns just put Christian Kirksey, one of their linebackers, on IR as well. They have some injuries in the secondary. That team is not in great shape, and they're about to go into their bye week the following week, so they might take it easy on some of these players. But
they should just take it easy the rest of the season.
Well, not just that, but Mohamed Sanu. So here's another thing that kind of favors Tevin Coleman is that Mohamed Sanu did not practice again. Like this hip injury that's bothering him, I have a feeling they're going to shut him down for a little while. I just feel like that they have enough options at receiver, enough options out of the backfield, but with Ito Smith and Tevin Coleman that they don't really need to use Mohamed Sanu a lot. So I think Tevin Coleman's an awesome play, and I'm talking myself more and more into playing him in cash.
Davis, do you like Duke Johnson against Atlanta, or can we just not trust him for cash games?
Yeah, no, I mean, if I played one Cleveland back, I would play Chubb, he's got the best rushing share of anyone not named Ezekiel Elliott or James Conner since Carlos Hyde got traded. They run down 20. They don't care. So yeah, I think Chubb is still fine. Duke last week had 9 targets. I don't think that he will get 9 targets this week.
I don't know. I look at the matchup against Atlanta and it just perks up my ears, and I think, oh, maybe this will be the game. There's no way I'm playing him in cash games, but I know people are thinking it, so I did want to bring it up. Let's move on over to wide receiver, where, I mean, like I said at the top, there's just nothing to be super excited about. You could play Devontae Adams against Miami. He's probably going to be the most popular play on FanDuel. Michael Thomas, he's a fine play, but if you're spending up, there's not really many other options. I guess you could go Julio Jones against Cleveland. Is Denzel Ward going to get him tags?
Ward, so Ward left the game. They were really discreet about his injury, and I've been trying to pay attention to this because if Denzel Ward misses, they're in a lot of trouble. They just put EJ Gaines on IR, so that secondary would be down 2 starters, and if Denzel Ward's out, you'll realize just how bad that secondary is. Julio or Calvin Ridley can go off. That's the issue, right? And it's been the issue all season where it's like, Julio, if you're paying up for him, you better be sure that this is a game where the running game can take over and the Atlanta could just kind of take a lead and coast on it. I don't know if Julio's like a must play. I don't think he's a bad play. Even if Denzel Ward plays, it's not like number 1 receivers haven't been able to do some work against that Cleveland secondary. So they're getting burned over the top quite often. Tyrell Williams exposed that. I think he scored a couple touchdowns, 118 yards against them. So I like Julio, but I'm not spending up for him in cash. I'm not going to spend for Michael Thomas because it's similar concerns that the Saints should be able to run all over Cincinnati. They're down a couple linebackers. They've had pass rushers go down. There's so many avenues for the Saints. I think that's my biggest takeaway for this slate as a whole is trying to stay away from teams in cash that have so many different avenues of which they can do. You talk about the Chargers. They can beat the Raiders any way they want. You have the Saints. They could beat the Bengals any way they want. You have the Atlanta offense that could beat Cleveland any way they want. But if you're going to play one of those guys, at least make sure they're one of the lower priced options like Tevin Coleman, because you're not risking your entire lineup. Because if Julio or Michael Thomas misses, you're in a deep, deep rut.
Yeah, and that does happen from time to time. Davis, what do you think about these top end guys?
In cash games, no interest on anyone until we get to Tyler Boyd at 7,500. Won't play Devontae, won't play Michael Thomas in cash, won't play Julio Jones in cash, but I think Boyd probably the first guy I put in this week.
He's the first guy I thought of as well. Robert Woods is right up there with him. I mean, I definitely wouldn't play Woods over Boyd, but at 7,500 on DraftKings, that's a good price for someone who seems to be getting it done every single week.
First time since probably week 2, I haven't played a Rams wide receiver in cash.
Yeah, he's got 70 plus receiving yards every week since week 2.
Boyd, man, he might be just better than AJ Green at this stage in their career. He's so good.
Oh no!
Tell him Tags is gonna fight you.
No,
here it comes.
No, AJ Green's a top 5 receiver in the game, and he was playing out of his mind this year.
Can you imagine if AJ Green was with Jared Goff?
AJ Green has made Andy Dalton so much money. He's made him. Well, I should say he's made him so many starts in the NFL. AJ Green is legit top 5 receiver in the NFL.
So are you worried about the Bengals offense this week in terms of their ability to cover the spread and just generate points? I think it's reasonable.
Yes, I am absolutely worried about them. And the Saints, so the thing is Tyler Boyd playing where he does. I'm curious to see how they handle him, though, because when he came out of the draft, I don't think they viewed him as a slot-only wide receiver. That's where he's done most of his damage, and that's where the Saints can be beat up against P.J. Williams. But the Saints also have to know that. This offense is going to run through Tyler Boyd. So what are they going to do? They haven't put Lattimore in the slot. Are they going to give a double coverage, kind of like they did to Adam Thielen? I know Thielen was able to overcome that, and I think he still had the 100-yard game with a touchdown.
Boyd would not do well with double coverage because what he really excels at is finding holes in the defense and just kind of sitting in it.
My question is the thing is, I'm not saying Boyd's a bad player. I think he's a good player. The matchup's really good. But what about Keenan Allen? Keenan Allen matchuping in the slot against Oakland, they've been terrible. And they have.
He was great last week too.
It's just the game script concerns because Allen's not a touchdown guy. They don't use him in the red zone. He definitely has some positive touchdown regression coming. No doubt about that. But I just think in terms of total team pass attempts and market share of those pass attempts, I think Boyd is the safer play this week.
All the concerns you guys had about Rivers, those go directly to Keenan Allen as well. So
I'm trying to figure this out. That's why I wanted to talk about him because here's the thing. You remember in that London game where legitimately Keenan Allen had a temper tantrum because he didn't get targeted in the end zone? I think they legitimately want to get him involved in the red zone. I think that he's frustrated by it. I know they're playing well, but obviously you want to keep your biggest players happy. And the thing is going against Leon Hall, he's a 33-year-old veteran that has allowed a 118.8 quarterback rating in his coverage this year, an 88% catch rate. So basically any target Keenan Allen gets, he's going to haul it in. I'm like I said, I'm not totally attached to him, but I wanted to talk about him.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. What about Mike Evans? He's in that price range as well. I know he's banged up this week. He's been missing practice, but with the way he's been playing, we're all expecting Ryan Fitzpatrick to do a lot. Is he someone you can trust in cash games, Davis?
No. I don't have anyone in my player pool for cash from Boyd down to the guys at 5K.
Okay. So the guys at 5K, I'm assuming you're talking about Marquez Valdes-Scantling first.
You don't like Jarvis Landry?
Oh, no.
Oh, why? Brian Poole is so bad.
Well, it's just he's had all of the volume metrics have favored him every week, and every week he just gets 12 DK points, and Baker is taking sacks, and it's just it's just a total nightmare.
We need 16 points. He's done that 3 times in 9 weeks, Tags. I know it's a great matchup, but I don't want to rely on Jarvis Landry, man.
I think eventually he will run on the positive side of variance, but there's a wide receiver who's top 5 in weighted opportunity ranking and market share of his team's targets and air yards, who is 4,500 on this slate.
Ooh, okay, you need to talk about him now then.
Corey Davis will be playing at home to the Patriots defense. I just don't see, look at the guys who are priced around him and look at their target shares. Guys like Traquan, Moncrief, Westbrook, Amendola, Keelan Cole, Tyrell. These are teams third wide receivers. Corey Davis is his team's first option, and he is 4,500 in what will be a good game script for passing.
It's hard to fade him at 4,500, but Stephon Gilmore's been one of the best cover corners in the NFL this season. And you look at Corey Davis when he's gone up against guys like that. Xavier Howard, 6 fantasy points. He went up against Jalen Ramsey, 3. He went against Tre'Davious White, 5. Jimmy Smith, 2. Casey Hayward, 1. It has not been pretty for him. So even at that price, I feel like it might be a little bit of a trap.
Not a trap for me. I'm 0%. I don't pay that close of attention to defensive matchups because I think volume ends up being more important than anything else. And I think that, if Corey Davis sees 28% of the Titans passing attempts in this game, which would actually be below what he's done in a lot of the games this year, I think he's like the most valuable wide receiver play of the week.
No, the volume has been there for Corey Davis, but the production hasn't. And like in cash, like you basically need a touchdown from him in this matchup against Stephon Gilmore, and Gilmore has played lights out ever since. Like he allowed I think 2 touchdowns in the first 3 weeks, and then ever since then he's just been shut down. I don't think Marcus Mariota is a talented enough quarterback to get the ball to Davis consistently on a basis where I want to trust him in cash. Like in a tournament, if you want to do that because of the game script and everything, I'm okay with that. But they are going to have him trailing around the field. So many people are going to ask on this show. I guarantee you people are going to ask, should they play Josh Gordon? And I know there's a lot of people that love Josh Gordon this week. And to be truthful, the way that Tennessee has been playing wide receivers, I would say that he's literally a lock for everybody's lineup. He should be in every single lineup at 6,000. However, is there concern that Tennessee is we've heard enough? Malcolm Butler, to the point where he's going to get benched. Do they go back to using Adoree Jackson to shadow? I don't know why they don't. I mean, they run man coverage 70% of the time. Logan Ryan's been good in the slot. Give Adoree Jackson the top wide receiver like he was getting last year in his rookie season, and he did well in that role. And then put Malcolm Butler on the number 2. I don't know what Mike Vrabel's doing. I don't know why they haven't done this yet, but I think it's possible that it starts this week.
Josh Gordon's a really good play, man.
What do you think, Davis? Do you think it's possible that they wake up and say, we're going to use Adoree Jackson in shadow coverage?
Gordon's a classic example of a guy who's really good for tournaments, but just not really in play for cash. He only has about a 21% market share. This is a lower total than the Patriots are normally involved in. So he's a guy where if he doesn't score, pretty much his score is going to be bad. He's pretty likely to negatively impact your lineup. I really like Gordon for tournaments. I will get him in a lot. I would prefer him in tournaments over Landry, for example, but I think at 6,000, I have Gordon and Davis projected with pretty much the same volume. Well, I have Davis projected with more volume, Gordon projected for greater efficiency per play, but they're right next to each other in my projections this week.
You guys know who I'm playing is Kenny Golladay. Have we forgotten how good this guy is? He's $5,800 on FanDuel, and I understand he didn't get all the targets last week and everything, but he's a dominator. He's a borderline wide receiver 1 in my opinion. In Chicago, they have a great defense, but they're not as good against the pass as they are against the run. I think Detroit passes quite a bit. I think Kenny Golladay is a great game.
His price hasn't come down enough.
On FanDuel, I think he's pretty strong. On DK, it's tournaments only.
Yeah, he's only seen 6 targets the last 2 weeks. I don't know what's going on with Kenny Golladay. I don't know if there was an injury we're hiding. I don't know if I'm starting to wonder if there was an injury to Marvin Jones earlier in the year. And he was slow to come on because of that. And now they're starting to target him more. I think he's had 18 targets over the last 2 weeks compared to 6 for Golladay. That's my concern there. And in cash, I'd rather wait it out just to see what's going on because there is a trend developing where Kenny Golladay is falling to second in the pecking order.
Xavier Howard, Xavier Rhodes. That's why.
Golladay actually played more snaps last week. Not a ton against Xavier Rhodes. He was actually in the slot a bunch. He just honestly, he just ran bad.
Yeah. And if they're moving him into the slot more often, I don't know if that's a role that necessarily would fit him. Usually you do get better targets playing the slot, but against the Bears, Bryce Callahan's a pretty good slot corner. But I at 5,100 on DraftKings, I would rather go down. We haven't talked about some of the cheaper options. I do want to hit on Maurice Harris. I know that coming off the week he had that, I don't know if he's going to be considered chalk against the Bucs, but
he'll be heavily used. Yeah.
When you look at Alex Smith and the fact that, Harris plays the slot, it's an area of the field that Alex Smith traditionally likes to target. You have MJ Stewart playing the slot for Tampa. He's been burned legitimately over and over and over again. We have 3 offensive linemen down for the Redskins. We have Paul Richardson that went to IR. We have Josh Doxson who can't separate and he's only good in the red zone. Chris Thompson's not going to play in this game. The targets have to go somewhere. And, Davis...
It wasn't a fluke either. He looked pretty good.
And Davis, well, that's what I'm saying. Davis, you were talking about, the target share for Corey Davis. How do we overlook it for Maurice Harris?
Basically just that there's probably some positive regression coming for Jordan Reed's targets.
Yeah.
And are we certain?
We've only seen it for 1 week for Harris, right?
Yeah, and are we certain that Chris Thompson is not going to play?
Yeah, it seems like it. It seemed like that rib injury, they said it was a multi-week thing. They've been taking it easy with him, with Crowder. Those guys, it just doesn't seem like they're going to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. Chris Conley, if Watkins doesn't play, though, is the cheap wide receiver that I like the most.
Yeah, he's at 3,200. He's actually one of the names that I wanted to mention as well.
Yeah, people were mad at me for saying I loved Chris Conley yesterday on the podcast, but the dude is a baller.
He's a crazy athlete. And like Patrick Mahomes, it's something I paid attention to this offseason. Patrick Mahomes was like talking him up, like saying he just keeps, he's like everywhere in the field. He can do things that other wide receivers can't. And people forget he posted over 500 yards with Alex Smith in the offense. I think he caught 44 balls for over 600 yards in 2016 before Tyreek Hill came to the offense. Like, the dude has talent, and he's played well in little spurts here and there. He's been used in the red zone. I think Conley would walk into, like, against Arizona. They're a better pass defense than most give him credit for, but I think we know that Patrick Peterson would be on Tyreek Hill, so that would mean
Buda Baker actually allows like an 80% completion percentage when he's targeted. He doesn't get targeted.
Oh man,
Baker's been terrible. But here's the thing: does Conley play the slot though? Like with Watkins out, because I think they would have to play.
Well, they move all their dudes around a ton. Demarcus Robinson and Marcus Kemp will get some extra run as well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a way right now as we're talking to get Gordon, Hunt, and Gurley into my lineup because like the wide receiver landscape is just disgusting. And so I'm going to pay down on all these guys. I don't know if I can do it, though, without going down and using like a scrub quarterback.
Yeah, on DraftKings, it seems like it's going to be pretty easy this week to pay up at running back because I could find you 3 receivers at 5K or less to put in your lineup if you wanted to and feel relatively comfortable with it.
You can't do it on FanDuel. You definitely can't do it on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, I think I can pull it off.
That's weird because FanDuel has always been the site. Like I like playing DraftKings. I'm more of a fan of PPR, but FanDuel has always been a site where it's like you go there and like if you get 1 or 2 cheap guys, like you could pretty much play whoever you want. That's how it's always been.
Yeah, they've kind of flipped this year, though.
Yeah, it seems like things have changed a little bit.
By the way, on FanDuel, they've got this contest called the World Fantasy Football Championship, and they've got these qualifier events, right? All you have to do is it costs $9 to enter. If you beat out 5,700 other people, so you can enter like 400 or 500 lineups if you want to. If you beat out 5,700 people, you get a free trip to New York to compete in the World Fantasy Football Championship. I love playing in these ones rather than the Sunday Million because it's like you have to have the absolute perfect lineup to win the $1 million. But for the World Fantasy Football Championship qualifiers, you just have to have a really good lineup, and it feels more realistic to me, and then you get to go to the event where you've got a chance to take home some serious prizes. So check that one out on FanDuel. It's called the World Fantasy Football Championship Qualifier. Again, it's $9 with a chance to win a ticket and a trip worth $42,000. All right, guys, we didn't talk about Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and it seems pretty clear, at least I think so, that he's going to be the number 2 ahead of Randall Cobb. Tex, do you think he's a good value play as well?
Yeah, Valdes-Scantling's a good play. Like you have Xavier Howard matched up with Devontae Adams, but the thing is like you've heard Aaron Rodgers, like, and that's the thing is like if somebody wants to play Devontae Adams, I don't blame them because like Aaron Rodgers said, like we need to hammer the targets to Devontae Adams. Like that's what he said after last week's game. I think he's upset with the play calling, and I think he's tired of it. Devontae Adams is a more talented wide receiver than Xavier Howard is a cornerback, and Howard's been dealing with an injury that's had him questionable the last couple of weeks. So Devontae Adams is the play, like he's the number 1 on their team, but as I mentioned, with Minkah Fitzpatrick going back to safety and then having to move Bryce McCain into the slot, they're forced to play, I believe it's an undrafted rookie at corner in McTire, and he has not been good. So Scantling, he's been the number 2 option. Randall Cobb is like a nobody in that offense right now, not playing very well, so I have no issues playing him at 5,000.
Totally agree. Really like Valdes-Scantling. He's like a really insane athlete. Clearly has earned the trust of Aaron Rodgers, which is like the number 1 biggest thing in that offense. We've seen talented players come and go in that offense without ever earning Rodgers' trust. But once you earn it, you're pretty much in.
He needs 12.5 points to hit value this week. The past 4 weeks, he's done at least that. And that was before Geronimo Allison was out for the whole season.
Yeah, he's just good.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by his talent level and seeing what he can do with Rodgers in an extended role because he's been like the number 3-4 option there.
Oh, yeah. Here's a fun stat for you. I found one doing the primer. I was going through, and if you were to take the games that have been played by when Geronimo Allison started the first 4 games and then Scantling over the last 4 games, if you put those guys together, they'd combine for 34 receptions, 606 yards, and 4 touchdowns. You know who the closest comp is? Tyler Boyd, 620 yards and 5 touchdowns. That would be an every week start, but yet people are still wondering about whether I should start Valdes-Scantling. Yes, you play him.
Man, that's really good. Any other wide receivers you guys want to talk about before we go over on to tight end?
Not in cash.
Yeah, that was my cash list.
It was pretty extensive, too. There's a lot of decent guys this week, just nobody that's like lock him in like there is at running back.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, over at tight end, it's the same kind of thing. We've got a lot of cheap plays, or you've got Travis Kelce. Which way are you going, Davis?
I'm going cheap. I always go cheap at tight end in cash, but I mean, obviously Travis Kelce's putting together a tight end season for the ages, and if you didn't want to play Tyler Boyd and you wanted to play Valdes-Scantling and pay up at tight end, I wouldn't really argue with you too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, last week was the first week I paid up for tight end with Kelce, and it worked out. But I'm usually looking for a value spot.
Well, it worked out for you if you would have used anyone other than O.J. Howard. I used O.J. Howard, so that worked out well.
Yeah, I mean, Kelce made up for my Crowell play, which obviously didn't work. But, looking at this, he's $7K. He's quite expensive. Like, they've bumped him up to the point where it's like, okay, you're now talking into like almost like the elite wide receiver territory. And I don't think he's a bad play, but I think that I would rather go down to Trey Burton at 3,900.
Yeah, Burton at 3,900. That's a good price. There's a lot of good prices on DraftKings. I'm looking at Trey Burton 6,100 on FanDuel, and I'm like, I might as well just pay up for Travis Kelce. But I'm rolling out O.J. Howard again this week.
Again this week against Washington. Why?
Because O.J. Howard is a boss, man. He's the number 4 fantasy tight end so far this season in games that he plays. He's just a really good tight end, and his total price rises. I'm going to keep playing him. In games he started, 19, 13, 16, 12, 17, 21. He's going to hit value, guys.
They have so many options there in Washington with DJ Swearinger. He actually does a really good job with tight ends. They've actually allowed 5.5 yards per target, which is actually the worst in the NFL to tight ends, so they haven't been great. It's a tougher matchup in cash than I would like. O.J. Howard's a freak, and like he can overcome some tough things. So I think he's reserved for tournaments, but Burton is the play for me because the Lions, even though people will look at it and they're like, well, the Lions don't seem like they're that bad against tight ends. It's kind of like the Raiders a couple weeks ago. People missed it. Like they missed the boat. Now people are looking at it like, oh, you want to play tight against the Raiders? It's the same way with the Lions. The Lions defense has allowed 8.9 yards per target to tight ends. They've allowed a touchdown every 11.8 targets, a 70% completion rate to them. Like the volume just hasn't been there. And people just like, they go back to that game. Well, they shut down Rob Gronkowski. Well, they also double and triple teamed him that game too. And Rob Gronkowski hasn't done anything this year. So I like Burton. I just think that they're going to have difficulty containing this Bears offense because they don't really have one guy in the offense that does it all. But Burton has had tough matchups the last couple weeks. And I think people are down on him because of that.
So you're going cheap, Davis. Who are your cheap guys that you like?
CJ Uzoma, he posted the bagel in the Bengals last game, but obviously, just through the kinetic chain of passing, he'll probably walk into 5 or 6 targets this week in a game that the Bengals are going to have to throw a lot. Always kind of like Austin Hooper, especially when Ridley or Sanu is banged up. Think Njoku is sort of in play. Doyle is the one I would like to play the most, but I don't know if I'll be able to get there in cash games because I kind of want to pay up at some other spots. But Doyle would be my optimal play.
I really don't feel good about any tight ends this week, but if Jordan Reed is out, I'm all over Vernon Davis. Lock him in for me. He would be my lock of the week.
If Jordan Reed was out. Yeah.
I'm on board with that take.
Yeah, Davis, let me talk you off the Uzama talk, like that one, like don't play him. No. So the Saints, like I understand what you're talking about with the targets. I really do get it, but the thing is the Saints, I think it's gonna be a ball control offense for them. I don't think that the Bengals have the ball very much in this game, and like the targets, while they would be expected to be there, that team has been dominant against tight ends, like legit dominant. They haven't allowed a single tight end more than 4 catches all year. They haven't allowed a tight end to even reach 8 PPR points. Like Uzama is coming off of a game against the Bucs where he was like he did deal with an injury that week where he missed some time in practice, but 4 targets, no catches. I just think that they're going to involve Tyler Kroft a little bit more. If anything, Uzama is going to be an awesome play next week. They're going to play the Ravens and people are going to be off of him, but I think he'll be a good play next week. But this week I understand why you'd want to play him, just considering everything. But even going back to last year, the Saints were like one of the best teams in the NFL against tight ends. Like that defense is just shutting them down.
I tend to just not really pay that much attention to like individual matchups or like fantasy points against to like specific positions just because that stuff is so fluid. And the Bengals also probably are going to use Uzama like a slot wide receiver this week with everyone so banged up. I'm expecting that he will split out. They've been playing this dude by the name of Harris and Matt Langle have been getting in to like do the blocking snaps. So I think that Uzoma basically his job this week will be pass catching only.
That's fair. It's a different matchup for sure.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, they do have a lot of guys banged up. I could see that happening. I don't know if I want to rely on it for cash games. It's just ugly at tight end this week. Guys, let's move along and go to defense, special teams. I like to pay down. I think everyone likes to pay down unless we get a matchup like the Bears had last week, right? But I don't really see anyone that I love for super cheap. I guess I could go up to the Bills at 3,700 on FanDuel and use them. We'll let you go first here, Davis. Who's your cheap defense, or are you paying up?
I would really like to get the Jets this week. I did some research this week, and since the AFL-NFL merger, Nathan Peterman has the second worst adjusted yards per attempt of any quarterback who's thrown more than 100 passes. The guy who is worse than him actually had more passing touchdowns, but just happened to be like a little bit worse in terms of yards gained on his completions. So I feel confident saying Nathan Peterman is actually the worst quarterback in NFL history.
I mean, yeah, but they're so expensive. I can't do it.
Oh, man.
They're not, though. Like, if you look at all the other defenses against the Bills, especially at home, they've all been 4K or more. The Jets are only 3,400, which is more than I've paid for a defense all year. But at this point, the Bills are allowing 19 or more DraftKings defensive points to opposing defenses at an 80% clip. I think only 2 teams have not gotten to 19.
You can sign me up on DraftKings. Yeah, I will definitely pay up for the Jets, but on FanDuel, they're $4,900. I can't do it.
Yeah, to go up to 3,400 for the Jets is not a bad move. I think if you want to save a couple hundred, go to the Packers. The Packers are a good play. I think they actually might have a higher ceiling in terms of like pick six potential with Brock Osweiler. Their secondary is a little banged up, and I would like to see who's going to be out for them. But at the same time, they do get after the passer, and they're going to rack up sacks, and it's going to be a negative game script for Brock Osweiler, so he's going to throw a ton. So you're not really necessarily even worried about the points. And if you are, I mean, play Brock Osweiler. But yeah, I think the Packers defense at 31 is actually a really solid play. They're a home favorite by 10 points.
I like the Packers too. I like the Bills, but I'm using the Saints in cash games. They're 3,200 on FanDuel. They've been substantially better lately, and they're going up against a banged-up Cincinnati team. Tags, you talked about how that offense is going to come to a halt without A.J. Green. I would agree with you. I mean, the Saints have at least 3 sacks in 5 games this season. They've got a lot of talent. I think this week it comes together, and they prove well worth the cheap price.
Yeah, they were actually my GPP defense that I actually like quite a bit.
Well, let's go GPP. I guess you're picking the Saints. Do you have anyone else you want to share?
I mean, not really. I mean, there's so much volatility in defensive play and tight ends, so it's like you don't want to have too much exposure to one player or one defense. The Saints, they are my favorite. Like I said, there's just so many things with Andy Dalton. If you look at his career, there's been 11 games where he's played without A.J. Green. In those 11 games, he's averaged 253 yards, 1 touchdown, and 0.7 interceptions. So he hasn't put up many points on the board, and we know that Joe Mixon is going to be facing one of the toughest run defenses in the NFL against New Orleans. So I really have concerns about this offense this week. I think that's and we all know that Andy Dalton, he's not like, a guy that doesn't throw a couple interceptions from time to time. Like, I think there was a 4 interception game this year. So he's definitely not prone from, like, they won't be shy away from benching him if they have to.
Davis, who are you going for GPP in DST? 1 or 2 teams?
I really like the Rams. I think they're a pretty good way to go in terms of cheap defenses this week.
I'm fond of the Patriots this week. Going up against Tennessee. I mean, we've seen Tennessee's offensive line, just how horrible it can be. Mariota's not the biggest turnover-prone quarterback or anything like that, but he does throw an interception from time to time, and the Patriots are turning it on lately. They've given up 17 points to Green Bay last week, 6 against Buffalo, which is what you would expect. They scored 17 fantasy points against the Bears. I know it's not the safest play, but for GPP, I could see them having a big week again.
Yeah, one team I want to mention is the Colts. They are averaging, at home, they're averaging 2.7 takeaways per game, which is the most in the NFL. Obviously, against the Jags and Blake Bortles, it's always possible that, that rears its ugly head and they turn the ball over again. So I think the Colts are not a bad play either.
And you don't have to be contrarian. Like, you can just go use one of these defenses that is just good. Like, they'll be 7% owned, but you know what? If they put up 25 points, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, I think that the Jets offer the safest floor here.
All right, tight end. Are there any GPP plays you like, Davis? I can never find one that I'm especially fond of.
Like Travis Kelce, Jared Cook at tight end are both pretty good volume. Probably no one will have them. In fact, no one will have Jared Cook. And he, I know the SF game went like totally wayward.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he can't have another 27, 31-point game like he's done earlier this year.
Right, well, Cook he was the biggest beneficiary in terms of like what I projected for target volume for the Raiders going forward. So I think Cook is definitely my GPP guy.
Tags, I like Nick Vannett this week. He had 8 targets last week against the Chargers. We know the Rams just aren't very good against tight ends. I could see this being a pass-heavy game for Seattle like we haven't seen in the past month or two. I could see Vannett putting up another big week after last week's 52 yards, 6 receptions, and a touchdown.
The reason I don't like Vannett that much is because Russell Wilson, I've talked about his struggles against the Rams and how, over the last 3 games, 3 times they've played, he's thrown for under 200 yards. So I don't think there's going to be like a massive game available for Vannett in this one. And him and Dixon are obviously splitting time. I think Vernon Davis, even if Jordan Reed plays, I think Vernon Davis is worth a shot in the tournament. Tampa Bay has been legit terrible. Like I know CJ Uzomah didn't do anything against them, but this is a team that has allowed 6 top 6 performances to tight ends. Like that's like unheard of. There's been 6 tight ends who have top 15 PPR points. Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis, like those are the 2 players that I will take some shots on in tournaments for sure. The matchup's just too good not to. And Jordan Reed hasn't been connecting with Alex Smith for whatever reason. I don't know if the injuries, he has a neck injury, a back injury, whatever it is. And that's why I think Vernon Davis, even if they do make him active, I think he's a solid play. And I think Ricky Seals-Jones is another one that he ran a season high 37 pass routes under Byron Leftwich in the first game they played. Kansas City has really struggled without Eric Berry. That safety combination they have just hasn't defended tight ends very well. So I think Ricky Seals-Jones is one I would also play in some tournaments.
What do you think about Jack Doyle against the Jags? He's so cheap and he gets so many targets, but the matchup.
I see no reason not to play Doyle. I don't even like the Jaguars even have good pass covering linebackers. Like Miles Jack is like, he's okay, but he's much better in run defense than he is in. And also Doyle, it doesn't even matter. His job is not to be athletic or to run crisp routes. He's just a very good outlet for Andy Luck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. So Jacksonville, they do have a lot of good athletes on that defense. Like they are really good. And that's the thing. Doyle's not like known as like an athletic tight end. And if you look at Jacksonville in terms of tight ends, the tight end the only tight end I should say, who did damage against them this year was Travis Kelce. And Kelce's obviously like the most athletic tight end in the world. Zach Ertz was held to just 4 catches for 26 yards and a touchdown against them. I know he scored a touchdown, but if he didn't score that, obviously we're looking at a different scenario for him. So in a tournament, I don't mind Doyle at all. I wouldn't play him in cash, but in a tournament, I'm okay with Doyle.
All right, wide receivers. We'll let you go first here again, Davis.
Michael Thomas right away for me. Michael Thomas's year that he's having is insane. He's got a catch rate at right about like I think it's like 88% right now, but not unlike Tavon Austin average depth of target. His average depth of target I think is 8. His like the yards per target that he's gaining this year, I would have to go look this up on a historical leaderboard, but my guess would be his yards per target is going to break some NFL records.
Yeah, probably.
Man, he has just been absolutely incredible. Why don't they throw him the ball every single time?
Well, now they got Des Bryant.
Yeah, now they got Dez and Traquan running.
I don't think Dez is playing this week.
Tags, who do you like?
If you want to go high, I actually like Devontae Adams quite a bit. As I mentioned, Xavier Howard's not on his level. I do like...
I don't know about... Yeah, I mean, he's not contrarian, but again, you can definitely play him in GPP.
Yeah, that's where we're at with this one. Keenan Allen, I do like. But looking a little further down the board, going outside the box a little bit, let's go down to Kenny Stills at 4,100. I mean, I don't like the play. I don't like it very much at all, but I want to say him because when I was going through and kind of like researching that game, everything kind of added up to Kenny Stills like should have a decent game. Like he's only been targeted a few times under Brock Osweiler. He hasn't taken the shots down the field, but like when you look at the Packers secondary, so they've been using J.R. Alexander on the number 1 receiver. So I'm guessing he'll be covering Devontae Parker. And then like they moved Tramon Williams. They moved him into the slot because like they were struggling. They have Kevin King who is dealing with a hamstring injury, so he's probably not going to play. Their safety position, they traded away HaHa Clinton-Dix. Kentrell Bryce is hurt. Like, there's so many issues in that secondary, and I think they could be beat over the top. Stills does have the second highest average depth of target in the NFL. So he's like a one play away from breaking it, and we've seen him have multiple touchdowns in a game this year. So 4,100, with him getting healthier, I don't think he's a terrible play. Devontae Parker's 4,200, so he's not terrible either. But if you guys want one completely off the board that nobody's going to talk about, Tajay Sharp.
Oh, that sounds disgusting. But why?
Because the Patriots have been beat. Like, Jonathan Jones is their worst cornerback in coverage. The game script is obviously going to favor him. As Davis was talking about with Corey Davis, he's really struggled in matchups against, top tier cornerbacks, and Stephon Gilmore has been that. So when you kind of look at it, it's been like just a funnel to the slot. And Tajay Sharp, he has made appearances on the stat sheet before. Taywan Taylor, I don't even know if he's going to play this week with his foot injury. So Tajay Sharp at 3,600, I don't think it's like a crazy play.
I like Dante Moncrief. I mentioned this on yesterday's show for Start Sit. He's got 35 targets in his last 4 games, Going up against Indianapolis, I think the Jags are going to have to pass. It might be ugly, but Moncrief is their clear number one. He's getting long targets. He's getting red zone targets. He's a good price.
What's your take on that, on the Jags wide receivers, Davis?
Westbrook would be the one if I played any of them, just because I think he's actually talented at football. And so, inefficient targets from an inefficient quarterback. I just want to take the guy who I think can do something with them. I think Moncrief does have the target volume, but I think Moncrief is not dynamic enough of an athlete to really turn those targets into like a tournament winning score unless he scores twice.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I could see him scoring twice, but Westbrook is more of that guy. Keelan Cole's had some really big games from time to time too.
He's just not playing now. Chark is playing over him. I think he had 20% of the snaps last week.
Here's one that I absolutely love. It's Doug Baldwin. I know he's been disappointing. You know how disappointing he's been every single year in the first 8-9 weeks? If you look at week 10 on, over the past 3 years, Doug Baldwin is the number 2 fantasy receiver. He's got 310 fantasy points. Antonio Brown's just ahead of him. Number 3 is all the way down at 249. So he's a full 60 points better than the number 3 fantasy wide receiver. I don't know why, but in the second half of the season, he is always really good.
It's because Russell Wilson hasn't been good at the beginning of the season. I think that just trickles down into Doug Baldwin's stats, but the last 2 meetings against the Rams, he's totaled 1 catch for 6 yards and 4 catches for 37 yards. That's terrible.
That is awful. Oh, man.
That's terrible. Nickel Roby-Coleman, they benched him a couple weeks ago. He came back and he's playing in the slot again. No, I can't do Baldwin. I really can't. I understand the thought process on it because the Rams have really struggled against wide receivers, but ugh.
You would have said the same thing if I told you I was playing Maurice Harris in cash games last week.
Well, it's true. I mean, yeah, Davis knows about that. People played him in cash, right?
He was in a. If you had him last week, you're bad probably.
That's very true. Oh man, I saw that whole conversation. I was laughing the entire time. I wasn't getting involved, but I thought it was funny.
I didn't see it. What happened?
Davis got into a debate on Twitter. Basically someone said, you didn't play Maurice Harris in cash. And he's like, if you did, you're bad. And it was just it went into this long thread. It was funny.
All right, guys. Any other wide receivers you want to talk about, Davis, for GPP?
Oh, well, I mean, Tyreek.
Obviously.
Yeah, Tyreek in a massive... And people probably won't play him because of the spread and because of Patrick Peterson or whatever. So it's just a perfect time to get him in.
Yeah, Peterson was burned by Marquise Goodwin for a 55-yard touchdown when they played. That was in Peterson's coverage. So Tyreek is never off the board for me. He's always in play. One more that I want to mention is Marvin Jones at 5,500 with the target share he's been getting. Kyle Fuller is not a shutdown cornerback by any means. He will see some one-on-one coverage, and Stafford, when he's in trouble, he will throw it up to Marvin Jones if he's in one-on-one situations, and it's worked out for him more times than it hasn't. So Marvin Jones in tournaments for 5,500, not a bad play.
I got 2 more names I like. Devontae Parker at Green Bay. I think Miami's going to throw the ball quite a bit, and we've seen Parker get a ton of targets. It didn't happen last week. It wasn't in the cards, but there's a chance it happens, and that's what we're looking for in GPP. Same with Chris Godwin. If Mike Evans is going to miss this game, I could see Godwin just being a beast.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't even know Evans was super banged up, but could not agree more on that.
Yeah, Evans, let's see. I think he missed practice on Wednesday, right?
He did. I think they're just taking it easy with him. And he's coming off a 10-target game where he had 1 catch. It wasn't great. So
man.
he's just someone that I'm going to wait till he's healthy. But I can't remember. Do one of you guys mention Cooper Kupp? Because the last time they played Seattle in week 5, he only played half the game, and he had his biggest game of the year.
Yeah, we never mentioned Cooper Kupp, but he's always a good play.
But 6 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown while playing half the game. I don't know. It's something to keep on your radar.
Seems pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's go running back, and I'm going to start us off here because I'm really excited about this GPP play. Everyone looks at Jacksonville's defense, and they're like, I don't want to play anyone against them. Marlon Mack might be a really good play against them. He's coming off a 32 and 29-point fantasy game. Jacksonville, as you know, their defense has not been as good lately. I think they're susceptible against the run, and I think Marlon Mack could eat them alive.
I'm not interested just because he...
Yeah, I'm not all that interested either.
Good. Give me all the ownership then.
I would prefer Hines probably.
He's only playing 50-60% of the snaps. Jacksonville hasn't been bad against running backs this year.
I don't care as long as he's getting 22 rushes per game. I don't care how many snaps he's playing.
I don't think they're blowing the Jags out. I think the Jags win this game. But that's just me.
I hope you're right, man. I'm a Jags fan, but I don't know if you are.
My favorite play on the board, I kid you not, and I want to play him in cash. I really, 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 really do, is Mark Ingram. So many people have written this guy off.
Don't do it, Tags.
So many people have written him off.
Okay, it's not Isaiah Crowell bad, but please don't play Mark Ingram in cash.
Dude, like, come on. He has, like, the carries, the touches he's getting in this offense, the game script that we're expecting against Cincinnati, the Bengals defense is terrible.
Oh, I just saw his price on DraftKings. I take back what I said. That's a good $4,500 for Ingram?
This is a guy that legitimately should not shock you if he scores 20-plus points. And at 4,500, like, he's one of the best plays in tournaments. If you want to tell me...
Man, that is perfect in tournaments.
Yeah, if you want to tell me you don't want to play him in cash, okay.
I will say that.
But I love Mark Ingram this week.
I'm assuming you agree since you're really smart, Davis.
I get it for tournaments, but I mean, the issue with him is they're not using him as a pass catcher near as often, and Kamara is getting the goal line work, which was not happening last year. So it's just like, it's not a great floor or ceiling spot.
Is Spencer Ware going to be used by people in GPP?
I probably will throw him in a couple.
Yeah, I'm definitely throwing him in there. And just imagine, like, I'm not saying you bank on this at all, but if Kareem Hunt gets hurt, there's probably like a 2-3% chance Spencer Ware could put up 150 yards.
He definitely could.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets hurt.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of thing happens, though.
Austin Eckler, by the way. Austin Eckler, I think, is a better play than Spencer Ware.
I like them both. I mean, I'm not going to use both in the same lineup, but I'll use one here and one there. Rashad Penny is somebody else that I could see having a big game. Elijah McGuire.
McGuire's interesting, man. With Josh McCown back under center, McCown did target running backs a little bit more than Darnold did.
And Crowell's not going to catch the ball.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, McGuire's interesting at 3,400. I also think that, so hold on, if you guys are like Aaron Jones supporters, cover your ears. I like Aaron Jones and I think he's fine, but I think this might be more of a timeshare than people think. And I think Jamal Williams at 3,500 is a guy.
Well, he's the passing down back.
Well, that's the thing, but that not just that though. He did get a red zone carry against the Rams a couple weeks ago. They brought him in the red zone, and with the Aaron Jones fumble on that potential game, to take the lead in that game, I wonder if there's any repercussions from that, because like they obviously traded away Ty Montgomery after he fumbled and like made a stupid, like, that was one of the dumbest plays I've ever seen. Aaron Jones's fumble was quite ugly. It was just a lackadaisical in terms of how he secured the ball. So I wonder if they give Jamal Williams more carries. I think against the Dolphins, there's going to be enough carries to go around for both of them. So if Jamal Williams breaks a long one and gets a goal line carry, you could be looking at like hitting great value at 3,500.
Do you remember right before the Panthers went on a bye, they gave Christian McCaffrey 28 carries and just said, well, you got a week to chill, so I might as well just give you a ton of carries. What if the Dolphins do that with Kenyon Drake? They've got the bye coming up in week 11.
Drake had like 4 carries last week.
Yeah, no, he had 3, but honestly, like, is he the number one receiver for the Dolphins? You look at him the past 5 weeks, 7, 4, 4, 2, 4 receptions. Nobody else is even in the same atmosphere in Miami for receptions. They spread the ball all out. Drake's getting a lot of opportunities. He's got a 25 and a 24-point game in that time period. I could see it happening again against Green Bay.
I don't want to touch like Drake and like cash or anything, or like season long leagues. They're so frustrating, but this game, I mean, 3 of his 4 biggest games this year have come in games that the Dolphins have lost. And like, even though people are like, like talking about this Dolphins team, like, well, they're winning games and this and that. Like, if you think they're going to keep this game close, I think you're wrong. I think they're going to be losing by quite a bit. It's going to be like one of those Houston situations where you're going to see him used a lot in the passing game. You're going to see him, get some carries against some very light defensive fronts because they're just dropping guys back in coverage. So I think this is a Drake game. Like you don't want to trust him in cash. You don't have to play him in season long if you don't want to, but in tournaments makes for a great play.
All right, let's go quarterbacks and tags. I'm assuming you're starting with Nathan Peterman.
Obviously. No, Bortles.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
Oh man, this is so funny. You always make fun of me when I say Bortles.
I do, but he's 4,900. He's just too cheap. Like, that's the thing. Like, we know the rushing upside that he offers. He could return to form. The thing is, what's crazy about this, Bobby, I actually pulled...
What do you mean by return to form? His form is horrible.
Oh, so his form has always been horrible, and it was horrible last year. You want to hear some fun stats? Like, this is one I wanted to bring up on the podcast, so I'm glad we talked about Bortles. In 2017, Blake Bortles averaged 230.4 yards per game. This year, 252. Last year's completion rate, 60.2. This year, 60.3. Touchdowns per game, 1.3 in both years. Interceptions per game, it's very close. Just a little bit less in 2017. He's actually averaging more fantasy points per game in 2018 than he did last year. So why are people legitimately talking about Blake Bortles like, oh, this guy got really bad? He's always been bad. He has always been bad.
It's because he got benched. That's why.
He's been fine in fantasy. He's got big upside. He's had a lot of big games. Tags, I've got to be honest, if you didn't say him, I was going to say him right at the end of the show just to get a reaction from you. But I do think he's a good play.
I'm not saying he's a great play, but I think that at 4,900, he allows you to do some crazy things in your lineup. And it's not like the Colts have been like a shutdown defense. So, I don't mind him. Trubisky is another one that I think that I would be interested in tournaments.
By the way, this is hilarious. So on FanDuel, I'm looking at the pricing, just going all the way down on accident. I don't know why I did. But you've got Geno Smith, Davis Webb, Danny Etling, and then they're all $6,000, and there's only one player under $6,000. It's Nathan Peterman at $5,500.
Oh, that's a troll job right there.
That is so funny, man. I love it. All right, Davis, who do you like for GPP at quarterback?
I really like Mahomes. I just think that's obvious if that game remains competitive at all, or if they just decide to let him keep playing. I really like Drew Brees. People don't play Drew Brees on the road. For good reason, but certainly a 400-yard, 4-touchdown game is not out of question for him at all. And then honestly, I'll probably just load up on Fitzpatrick in tournaments too.
Yeah, I like Fitzpatrick in tournaments for sure because his ownership in cash is going to be around 20%. In tournaments, we're probably looking at 6-7%, so I think there's a lot of value to be found there. I can't do Mahomes in GPP on FanDuel. DraftKings, it makes sense, but at 9,800, we need like 34 FanDuel points for him to hit value. I guess it could happen. It happened against Pittsburgh, but we're talking about 6 touchdowns in 28 attempts. I don't know if that happens, especially against Arizona, so I can't play him in GPP. The guy that I do like, though, is Matthew Stafford against Chicago. Like I mentioned, they're going to be passing the ball a lot against Chicago because they've got that pass funnel defense there. Matthew Stafford has had big games from time to time. I love stacking him with Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones.
I don't think it's terrible. They're getting Khalil Mack back, though, and when Mack has been healthy and rushing the passer, that's when that defense looks a lot better. Roquan Smith has been playing awesome. Danny Trevathan's been playing awesome.
Andrew Luck against Jacksonville's one, too. You mentioned him for cash games, Davis, but I think in GPP he's going to be like 1% owned. He's got at least 23 FanDuel points in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think that's totally fine.
Is he a top 5 rest of the season quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
He not real life quarterback, but
sure.
For our purposes, yeah.
Yeah, for passing 760 times, yeah. I got Rodgers, Mahomes.
Davis, you wouldn't put him in the top 5 real life?
I don't even think he cracks the top 10.
Oh, no, come on.
What is he doing that's good? What has he done that's led you to believe he's back to form?
The dude is immune to pressure. He legitimately stands in the pocket. He can maneuver. He's mobile. His accuracy has been spot on. His wide receivers have been terrible for years.
Yeah.
This reminds me of the DeAndre Hopkins argument that we got into last time, where I told you guys that DeAndre Hopkins was top 5 and you guys both said no. I'm just defending Andrew Luck here. I'm defending his honor because Andrew Luck has looked like the quarterback.
What do you think his average intended depth of target is?
It's not high. That's what I'm saying.
I think it's the lowest besides Derek Carr, right?
Hold on, if you were to go and look at I've watched all of his games, obviously, but if you were to go and sit down and watch them, when T.Y. Hilton was out, there's nobody out there gaining separation. Ryan Grant's pathetic. He's playing Pasco out there. Eric Ebron was the only tight end, and he's made Eric Ebron look awesome. But what I'm saying is the placement on his ball has been awesome. He throws a beautiful ball. His offensive line is starting to give him protection, and that's why we're starting to see these fantasy numbers come through. This feels like Peyton Manning all over again, where it's he's stuck on this Colts team that had a terrible defense for so long. They had a bad offensive line, but Peyton overcame a lot of stuff. And every year, it seemed like he kept them in contention, and only the one Super Bowl with them. But I just feel like Andrew Luck is underappreciated, man. I don't know if. I don't think there's 5 quarterbacks that I would rather have being the captain of my football team.
I've got 7 of them. Okay, I just made a list in this order. Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes. Keep in mind, I'm not talking fantasy, I'm talking real life. Mahomes is way better than Brees in fantasy. Matt Ryan's number 4, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, and then obviously Stephen Morris.
That's the thing. I don't think I would. At this point in their careers, I don't think I would take Brady over him.
I think Brady and Luck are really similar.
No disagreement with Stephen Morris, though. Everyone agrees he's top 10.
Obviously. Does he have a job anymore?
I don't think so, man. I don't think he's in the NFL, but he should be.
Bobby, you should hire him as your assistant or something, because seriously, you love that guy. Out of control.
I need to hire him as my backyard football quarterback. I've got a tournament coming up here soon.
Oh, man. But yeah, this is a great way to end the show.
Yeah, did you have any other GPP plays you want to mention, Davis, for QB?
No. I'm good.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on over to Stack of the Week. Matt, Tags, you go first.
I'm just gonna stick with the whole. I'm gonna go with the Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams stack. I think that one is gonna pay off in a tournament. Like I said, I don't think you need to play it in cash, but when Rodgers says that he wants someone to be involved, Aaron Jones started to get involved. When he says that he wants someone to be targeted, he's gonna target them. And if they're gonna trust him in man coverage, Devontae Adams will beat Xavier Howard, and he will have a great game. So I think that stack could pay off big time.
Davis, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I just think that kind of seems like it's going to be a gross game, don't you think?
It could be.
Like, I'm not trying to make a ton of, like, I totally get it, Rodgers, and I'd love MVS as a player. I just don't know if that'll be like a core tournament play for me.
Yeah. If I'm stacking 3 players from the same team, it's going to be Phillip Rivers, Melvin Gordon, and Keenan Allen. I think that they are a lock, all 3 of them, to have good games.
What do you have, Davis? Who's your favorite stack?
Favorite stack. Okay, let's just go Mahomes Conley. I know for a fact if Watkins is out, that will be the pairing that I will have the most in tournaments. So since it's what I'm gonna do, that's an easy answer.
I dig it, and I honestly think that Watkins is out. Like I think that's almost all but guaranteed right now.
Yeah. So there you go. Hot takes.
Lock of the week. Tags, you're going Melvin Gordon?
Yeah, that's where I'm gonna go. Like I don't feel like as like slam dunk confident as I've been. Like I've been nailing this too. Like someone went back and they're like, just tell me who to play. Like give me the top player and I'll figure everything else out. I was tempted to say Kareem Hunt because he's 8,500. Like he's a little bit cheaper, but yeah, I'm gonna stick with Melvin Gordon here.
I'm going Melvin Gordon too, but again, if Jordan Reed doesn't play, it's Vernon Davis for me.
Nice.
So Davis, why don't you go ahead and end us here? Who is your lock of the week?
Corey Davis.
Oh, that is bold, my friend.
All right, guys, that's all for today's show. Davis, as always, it was fun. Thank you for taking the time to come on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys.
It's our pleasure. Thanks to the sponsors of today's show, FanDuel.com, where they've got that World Fantasy Football Championship. It's $9 to enter. You've got a 1 in 5,700 chance to advance to New York for the live final where you can win huge cash prizes. And thanks to Audible, you can go to audible.com/fantasypros or text fantasypros, all one word, to 500-500 for a 30-day free trial, which includes your choice of an audiobook plus 2 Audible Originals. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.